So current evidence supports a largely innate learning of communicative signals. This means that an individual that has been deprived of auditory input from the moment of its birth, at the end would develop the same species-specific vocal repertoire in the same way as any other individual would. We have to understand primate vocal communication as indexical. It indicates affective states. This means that there is non-arbitrary relationship in between the vocalization and its functionality. The vocalization is linked to the specific context, and the individuals don't seem to have much control over it beyond how or when to use the call. There is also some evidence that some members of the same group or other groups show some differences. For example, these two vocalizations correspond to a Bolivian squirrel monkey call named Chuck, and it's produced by two different females. Although the call is the same, there are certain differences in between them. For example, the high frequency of the fundamental or the number of harmonics that they do have, even though the variation suggested by the current evidence is so minimal that we cannot compare it with human dialects. Our vocalizations studied. In my case, I analyzed the sounds through a software that shows the spectrogram of the calls. To put pure theory aside, I'm going to show you how spectrograms look like. So this is the spectrogram of a group of free primates from Bolivia. First, the data must be pre-processed to prepare and clean the file for further easy and correct analysis. This is where I must normalize the spectrogram values, pass filters, reduce noise, and then with the Raven program, I analyze the spectrograms. First, the vocalizations must be selected. To do this, we have two options. We can do it manually, which is a long but highly reliable task, or we can program an automatic detection of the vocalizations, which involves preparing a sample of species-specific vocalizations to train the program to detect the relevant ones. Then the selections must be ranked based on several robust acoustic parameters. I use 14. And then this analysis can be used for many studies. Vocalizations seem to be closely linked to their functionality, although in general their use can be intentional and flexible. The intentionality of a primate, of a call from a primate, can be identified through different behavioral markers, such as, for example, response weighting, audience checking, attentional getting behavior, or flexibility. With flexibility, I refer to the means-end dissociation of signals and context, understanding that the same signal can be used in different contexts and that different signals can be used for the same context. Even though vocalizations will always, as we said before, be linked to the same affective state. For example, some primates have different types of alarm calls to specify predators, but all of them denote danger. But on the other hand, the same vocalization can be found in different contexts, such as Simiris, the squirrel monkeys, when they eat something they like, or when they are huddling with a partner. They do the same vocalization, but they all are produced in different situations. Primates often create polyspecific associations with other species. For example, capuchin monkeys and Simiris, squirrel monkeys, overlap their home ranges and coordinate activities together, such as foraging. So to understand a bit more this kind of interaction, we have to know that Simiris can have group sizes of up to 200 individuals. So with so many of them, it's more likely that they find food resources. They guide the capuchins in there, and in exchange, they can get access to intact or partially eaten fruits that were discarded by the strongest capuchins. So during this kind of mixed group situations, it's been seen that the alarm calls from one species of Cercopithecus can provoke a response to another species from the same genus, suggesting that the primates are capable of creating mental representations from acoustic signals of diverse origin. Another example would be with tamarins, which use long calls as a communication signal for coordination during trips. So during the day, they also create polyspecific associations with other species of tamarins, and then there are indications that they use these calls, which are species-specific, to communicate, like as a proximity mechanism to facilitate coordination in between them. Therefore, It suggested that they know how to differentiate between the long calls of conspecifics and heterospecifics and react to them the same way. And not only that, but they also ignore the calls coming from individuals that they do not know, whether they are from their own species or from another one. In general, the structure of primate vocalizations is largely innate, as we said before. This means that they do not have the flexibility to produce new sounds beyond the ones already existing within their vocal repertoire. Even though they can modify a little the acoustic structure of a call to create small changes, but always within the species-specific sound production. This would be something comparable to the human phonation, for example. However, to my knowledge, only one previous study has evidenced the modification of the structure of a referential vocalization to designate a specific type of food, which were apples, when two groups of chimpanzees were brought together in a zoo. This modification was not created until really strong affiliative bonds were emerged in between them, which was 3 years after they joined together. In relation to this, there are several other studies that suggest that social factors influence the fine structure of some types of vocalizations, species-specific calls. This would be something like the closer or the more affiliation in between individuals, the more similar the structure of the call will be. Still, learning new sounds has been identified in other species apart from this one in primates, for example in songbirds, in marine mammals, or in elephants. Regarding ethology, the first thing that we must know is the ontogeny of the species and the age of the rescued primate in order to have a point of comparison in between the expected and the actual behavior. We must also take into account that if the primate has grown up with humans, probably as a pet, perhaps it has never seen another primate before, certainly not in its natural habitat. Therefore, the first thing that we have to teach them is how to behave according to their species-specific behavior. Regarding their sociality, we must take into account their social system. This is the natural group composition of the species. For example, are they solitary like orangutans? Do they live in family units like tamarins and marmosets, or in fission-fusion communities like chimpanzees or spider monkeys? Multi-male, multi-female groups like macaques. According to this, we must create first a group with close affiliative bonds to ensure that once they are released back into the wild, they will continue together. Regarding the second point, health, any current illness or possible deficiency must be treated while in quarantine so it doesn't infect other animals. And then again, once before the animal is released, we need to make sure that the animal is in perfect conditions, not only for its own survival, but also because it could infect many other animals of its own species and then further reduce the number of wild individuals or from other species, and then ending up in an environmental catastrophe. Finally, the place where the primate will be released has to be really well chosen. Firstly, because it needs to be a place that meets the basic needs of the individual, and secondly, because if the cause of the capture from this individual is not eradicated in that place, it could really likely happen again that they capture him.